everybody. Welcome to the Queen Comedy Podcast. Today, for you guys, I have a great person. So, I credit this man with a lot of helping me start comedy in LA because he gave me an opportunity when literally nobody else would. And maybe that's bad or good. I don't know. I don't know if that's bad or good. Probably for him, he was like, I'll risk it on this weirdo, but we'll see how it goes. But he's been a comedian, a booker, and a producer for over 23 years. He actually was the reason I started to learn how to MC. Um, he's just one of the greatest people ever. And sadly, he's not in LA anymore. So none of you can glom onto him and love him like I do. But please welcome the very funny, the very talented, the very amazing Richy Leis. Welcome, sir.
What a nice intro. That's such a kind intro. Thank
It's a
you.
true intro, man. Like you
While you were doing the intro, I wanted to go change my shirt into something nicer. That's how nice the intro was.
you like put on a tuxedo and come back.
Yeah, let me go get my top hat. There you go.
Well, I mean, you were the first one to give me opportunity at Flappers. You were also the first person to encourage me to produce a show at Flappers, and you're like, hey, you should start producing your own show so you can host more, so you get more stage time, so you can do all these things. And I was like, what?
I think you asked me how do I get on more shows, and I was like, produce them.
Yeah. And you were like so instrumental. I'm like, just go for it. And I was like, I was terrified, but I'm like, okay, this guy believes in me. Like, if someone's believing in you, it will change how you behave, how you do things. Because we don't always believe in ourselves, right? We go, I don't know, I'm kind of whatever. But when someone else is like, yeah, you can do it, you're like, oh, okay, I think maybe I can do it.
It offers you something which is, believing in yourself, right? It's like if someone says, go ahead. Oh, wait a second. That's right. Because we take a lot of classes and stuff too in comedy, or a lot of people do, at least I do.
I
I've
do too.
always taken classes, and it was about my head. This thing makes my head look so tiny. Can you still hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Doesn't it weird? Isn't that weird that when I put it on, it like shrinks my head down
It does.
to fit?
Oh yeah, it does. That's wild.
An abnormally short head. What were we talking about? Something about sucking.
Oh yeah. That's all of comedy. About taking classes and just like finding those moments.
Yeah, it is. It's it's wait, finding what is it? What were we talking about?
Finding permission or finding like people to push us forward or exceeding expectations or even breaking out of our shell or ourselves of self-doubt because if someone believes in you, one person believes in you, you can do it.
There's a lot of people out there who have a great confidence or a fake confidence or whatever it is that they are superstars. I'm like, I really am so soft spoken kind of as a person and anxious, and like comedy is great because I feel like I'm able to voice, just like get all of my nervousness out on stage and talk. And then everywhere else it's like, okay, well, I don't want to talk to anyone. Right. But then for me, it always has been about, if you just allow people opportunity, right, and tell them that there's really no boundaries. When I teach classes and stuff, the first thing I say is nothing anyone says to you as a class or a teacher or anything matters. It matters what you do for yourself and how you apply, if you can learn from other people, which is important with comedy. You don't need to do classes and stuff necessarily. If you go out enough and you write every day, you're going to experience those things yourself. But if you can hear the stories of people who've done it before you, obviously, you're going to avoid those accidents. And really, I for me, because I'm different than everyone and everyone's different from each other, but for me, taking classes was a great experience to hear. It really helped me level up quicker than have to do everything. Like every time I heard a story, I feel like it's better than going to 10 crappy open mics and sitting there for 9 hours and hating myself. I'd rather hear an inspirational story of how this person persevered and got through their own hardships, whatever it might be. They might be someone with a silver spoon in their mouth, or it might be someone who's from a challenged upbringing. But if they can do it, I can do it, right?
Yeah. The most inspirational one is why you were also at Flappers. Preacher Lawson came to LA. He moved to LA and he was like homeless. I didn't even know he was homeless. Like I had offered to buy him dinner and do whatever, and we whatever. And he was like, "Nah, I'm good. I'm good." And then find out later on, we're talking, and he's like, "Yeah, I was homeless, whatever." I was like, "Dude, I would have given you anything, like anything, my shirt off my back, like whatever." And like to see him where he is now is amazing to watch that, someone struggle that hard, but they wanted it so bad that he was, he was taking dates to midnight mics at Flappers. I'm not kidding. This is a real thing. He was
Oh
taking
yeah.
dates there and stuff. It's so wild. I was like, this guy is dedicated, so
That's your life, right?
yeah.
And if you can bring someone in, they can accept it. That's fantastic. We did a fun vegan show. I'm not vegan, but
Yeah, me neither.
I got hired by a place in LA that had a beautiful little theater. It was a vegan restaurant, high end. It was this crazy dedicated chef who was like a monk or something, and he took a vow of silence. But
Wow.
anyways, I get off the topic. We did this show in this back room of this place. Beautiful theater. It was like a, I don't know, it's like a $200,000 theater that seats like 50 people. And we did like a vegan show. It was like him, me, Karen Rentowski, Drew Lynch, a couple other people. And I think I was the only one who wasn't vegan. Oh, Jeff Dye.
I don't think Jeff Dye's vegan either.
I think he was vegan at the
He
time.
he was. Oh, okay. I really okay. All right.
Um, Headset. Time to get a new headset. Uh, but yeah, I love those that we're talking about providing yourself with the opportunity to do stuff. That's,
So for anyone who doesn't know you, what's your origin story? Like, how did you get started in comedy? Like, how did that come about? Because everybody has like a different way they got here, and
um,
as you've
I
especially been successful, I think. But like,
I got bit by a spider, a radioactive spider, and it ruined my life forever.
it would be a radioactive clown, wouldn't
Yeah,
it?
so I've got this permagrin all the time. Um, I've been in performing since I was like 6 years old. I got in like a play, and then I got into music and stuff. And I didn't find comedy until I was in my 20s. But when I was, I don't know, 8 or 9, my dad and my grandpa were going to see my Zeta. They took me to see, I think it was like George Burns, Milton Berle, and Henny
Wow.
Youngman in the round in Valley Forge Convention Center. And I
Wow.
don't remember what was happening. I mean, I remember what was happening, but I don't remember understanding it. I just saw my dad and my grandpa laughing, and I think that subconsciously stuck with me until later. And I'm like thinking back on when was the earliest time I ever saw comedy. I was doing restaurant and nightclub consulting,
Okay.
and I got approached by a guy with the Howard Stern show, Whack Packer, John the Stutterer, to be a manager of his because he heard I had a good reputation and I was an honest guy. I was like, I don't know anything about it, and he had a debilitating stutter, and he considered a disability, and so I was like, okay, well, I don't know what I'm doing. He was getting taken advantage of by his manager. Guy was taking 80% um of his income. And he was on Social Security disability, so it was a really difficult time for him. He's like, I'll give you whatever you want. I'll give you 50%. I was like, how about we just do 20% of anything that I bring in, which wasn't much. But I became the speaker. I became his liaison for him. So because it would take someone an hour to get through a 3-minute conversation with him.
Right.
So the Stern Show really appreciated the brevity of the conversations, and were like, they could just hit me up and be like, hey, can John come on this day at this time and talk about this stuff? And I would say yes or no. And that was it. They were so excited to have someone who was actually able to do that, and someone who was like a nice person, because all those people in that industry kind of were scumbags. So I started doing that, and one of the things that I did with him was book him as a guest appearance for live comedy shows through like the Reverend Bob Levy. I don't know if you
Oh
ever
yeah.
heard Stern back in the day. He was a big comic. He's in that tri-state area, and he would hire him. He would give him a couple bucks to come and do these appearances, which was great because the guy wasn't really making money, and this is a great opportunity for him to get some cash and wave and feel like a celebrity. And it was pretty cool. It was very uplifting, and so we started doing that. And I saw this guy Bob, who I'm still friends with, and I was not there as a stand. I was just there supporting. It was a fundraiser for Beetlejuice's manager. You remember Beetlejuice?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
His manager at the time had a stroke and had no health insurance.
Oh.
And so they had this fundraiser that they were going to raise all the money for his hospital care. And the place sat 2,500 people, and maybe like 20 people showed up.
Oof.
I was one of the 20. And Levy got on, and he did like an hour. And it was hilarious. He was doing crowd work, and he was going in and out of material, and it felt like it was a full room. It was a really cool night. And he donated money and stuff, obviously, but wasn't what they thought. But I was like, I want to do that. I think I could do that. I've been doing theater, and I've never felt theater sucked because I was pretending to be somebody else. So when I saw that, I was like, I could do that. And I started going every night. There was these little cabarets called the comedy cabarets. I think there's one left or two left. And they used to be in every Irish pub in the back room around Philly and Jersey. There was like a million of them. And you could just go from one place to another and watch stand up. So I was determined. There was nowhere to get on mics. I was determined. There's like one mic every month and a half or something. Besides that, I was doing like karaoke, and I
Okay.
would ask them to just stop, and I would try my jokes. It was awful jokes to crowds that were not into it. And so I found a room that was a little cafe. It was owned by a record label called Milk Boy. Milk Boy to this day, which is a very long time ago, still has comedy events at their different locations. It was one location then,
Wow.
and now it's several locations around Philly and that area. And they're known for being a record label for like Digable Planets and stuff like that. Anyways, I get
Oh,
off the topic
no,
so
it's cool.
easily. But I started producing shows immediately. And I would go to the comedy cabarets and I'd ask the features if they wanted to headline, and I'd ask the MCs if they wanted to feature. And I'd say, I'll split the door with you guys and we'll all try to sell tickets. And we just immediately started selling out shows and in like my neighborhood. And the cafe was, selling tickets too. It was great for them. And I was awful. And I remained awful for years after. But I was getting paid and I was learning to do stand up. Uh, so that was my goal from the get go, is how can I, because I acknowledged early that it costs money to do comedy.
Yep.
You just lose money doing stand up. So I was determined to start and not lose money.
That's smart.
But I've always lost money doing stand up.
Oh, comedians until you're like famous enough or whatever, you're losing money as a comedian. If you're not touring around the country and doing theaters and whatever, or selling out rooms, you're losing money in comedy. Every single comedian is doing
I mean, I did it during the pandemic. I did a whole series called Comedy Careers, and it was about the careers within the comedy industry that allow us to do stand up. I mean, unless you're one of the top 50,
yeah.
or you come from money, it's really no way, because the chain doesn't, we're every year we have an 8% increase in life at least, right? And most people get raises. The biggest comedy clubs in the country still only pay the MC 25 or $50, if that.
Yep.
And in LA, it pays $7 to $10
If you get paid.
if you get paid. Yeah, exactly. So,
I'm not going to mention any clubs here, but there's a couple that don't pay anything to anybody except for the headliner.
yeah, I mean, and a lot of them don't even pay the headliner. There's a club here that's like the oldest comedy club in the country, and he used to have like a million of them. Now he just reopened one. Last one closed, the original place. And when I called him, I said, "Hey, I moved down here. I'd love to. This is a 50-seat club. Hey, I'd love to get in with you. All my friends are doing it, and they all would recommend me." And he goes, "Okay, great." And he sent me your info, and I sent him the info. And I never got in. And I had a conversation. And he goes, "Well, most headliners know me very well, and that this is the oldest club in the country, so they really just work for free, so I don't have to pay anyone." And I was like, "Well, how does that work? How do you?" He's like, "That's how I'm able to stay open, is that I don't have to pay anyone." And I was like, "Okay." So I never worked for him, because it's like, how do you do that? Now, the shows that I pay like out when I'm booking, it varies.
Right.
It totally varies. Obviously, celebrities make more money.
Yeah.
That's how it is. Or comics that have been doing it longer. I really don't need. I very rarely can use a comic who hasn't been doing it for at least 5 to 7 years.
Right.
It's hard because all of my money makers are clean comedy.
Yeah. That was one thing that
Um,
you also said to me, and the other thing was that you said you should, if you produce a show, you should try to pay everybody if you can.
yeah,
Those are
I loved it
those are
when the
two big
Comedy
things.
Store started splitting the main room weekends. I was like, that's what I've been. I always say that is we should just all the clubs should split some sort of the profit with all the comedians. Maria Bamford, the story is that has always split her money evenly throughout her openers. So if whatever she gets paid and she has 2 openers, each of them gets a third, regardless.
Wow.
Yeah, how
Jeez,
nice
that's
is that?
amazing. That's amazing for her. Good for her. Yeah. I my goal one day is to be a big enough headliner, a big enough draw that if I go to a club and I'm there, I go to the club and I say, listen, if you don't pay everybody that performs here, you'll never see me again. I'll
Yeah,
never work
I
here
know.
again.
That would be nice. I something I
They could
always
they could
do
they could say no to me, but I'm like, okay, well then just know you're gonna get flamed.
every time someone offers me a gig, my first response is, "Can I get another $100?"
That's smart.
It's crazy. I never used to do it, and now I've got a family, so I'm like, if I'm going to take the gig, and I just got one of my good friends wants me to come visit and do these shows, and it's a loud, noisy bar, and I'm kind of too mellow now for the energy to try to keep the attention of a bar.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't, it's hard for me to. I'll say yes because I want to come visit you, and it allows me the opportunity to get paid to come visit you. But I threw out just like a number that it's like, I did. There's a company that I booked shows for a long time, and they said, "Hey, would you do our Christmas party?" And I said, "Sure." And I gave them a quote, and they said, "Well, that's a lot more than we pay you for the entire show that you book for us regularly." And I was like, "Well, corporate is a different gig." And she was like, "Why?" And I was like, "Honestly, because I know it's going to be a crappy show. I'm getting thrown under the bus for 45 minutes to an hour where it is going to be an awful time for me." And she was like, "How do you know that?" I was like, "I know. I'm going to come do it, and I'm going to give you my all. I'm going to give you 110%." And sure enough, I walk in. Their office party is all day long. It's 300 people in one room, and they can come and go to work as they can. But there's food always out. They're doing a raffle all the time, and the microphone can barely be heard.
Yep. Yep.
The person who's doing the raffle that you could barely hear through the microphone. It's like this. And a room full of people goes, "We've got a very special guest. Here's Rich." Not a single one of them knows who I am. Maybe 5 of them because they work the comedy shows. And it's like it was a health guru, and the whole company's based off of this health guru. And I'm not necessarily. I am healthy, but I don't necessarily look healthy. And I just stood there for an hour while the people in the back kind of smiled. The people who were like part of the event crew that put it together, and they just were like looking at me, like smiling and laughing, like they felt so bad for me.
And
But
now
like
you
that's why I took that. So I'm like, okay, I'll do it, but out of money.
go.
That's
Have you thought about doing like cruise ships? Because you're in Florida now, right? Is that right?
yes, yeah. So I'm not really into cruise ships, and um, like I said, I have a family now,
Yeah, yeah. That's why I said that. Like then
and
you can take a week and go whatever.
yeah, no, I want to be with my family all the time. I love them so much. So me being away for a week is
Yeah.
like, oh, I'd rather not. Um, I have my friends who are loving it, and that's what they love it. But then you hear the horror stories,
Oh yeah.
and the horror story is what I don't want to. Not that I'm scared of it. It's that I'm through half of my life. Half of my life is done. So my time is very precious, and I want to enjoy myself. I don't want to go on a cruise ship where if anything happens, now I'm stuck. I'm stuck out there, nothing doing. No, I'd rather be at home with my
Right.
family than any of that crap. There's that. And I do a lot of restaurants in Florida, personally as a performer, because they pay me well.
There you go.
And they're like, come back every month, please.
Have you thought about teaching a how to be a producer class like on Zoom or something like that, or do you do anything like that?
I did a handful of times. I have a class that I designed. I am not so I am still teaching here and there. Like I just wrapped up a class. Um, but teaching kind of breaks my heart.
What
There's
in what
so
way?
many. Okay, first there's people in comedy who frown upon that education.
Yeah.
I know it's ridiculous. Whatever. I don't argue with people anymore. It's not
Right.
worth my time. It's not worth my. Are you mad? Are you argue? What are you gonna? No, I'm not arguing. Like I tell my stepdaughter, I'm not arguing. It's not a thing. It's not. We're just having conversation, and you're wrong. Um, so there's that. There's people who like I have a style of teaching and I want people to be serious, but then there's so many people who are out there who are teaching in their own style, which is fine. I don't necessarily agree with the way they do it, but like I specifically know classes like I've taken classes where they just go, "Okay, get on stage and do 5 minutes." And you're like, "Okay." And you just go up there and do whatever you think it is that is stand up. And really there are no boundaries to stand up, you know.
Right.
But there's boundaries when I teach because I want people to experience a certain thing on how to write and how to tell a joke so they have a good set so that they can expand rather than just trying and sucking for as long as I did.
Yeah.
Um, and when I teach someone that for a long time and then they get on stage and don't do anything that we worked on, it's like, okay, well, I just spent months with you, weeks or months with you. What now there's no value. Yeah, you were paying me, but then you took that value and didn't utilize it, just flushed it down the toilet. So, that is like, okay, well, I'd rather just spend that hour working on something that is going to benefit me as well. And I
Right.
always learn something when I'm teaching classes because, people always have different questions, which is great because if you can learn from that, you're growing as a comedian. Like I always say, even those crappy 10-hour open mics, if you don't learn something, then you're really wasting your time. And
Right.
I would sit there and learn everything I can off the other performers, especially I really don't do all comic open mics. I prefer the all arts open mics.
I like those too, actually, especially when you're like one of or the only comedian. It's like a piano player, a poet, a guitarist, or whatever, and then you do comedy,
It's
and
the best.
everyone's like, "Whoa, what's going on here? This is
Yeah, this
amazing!"
guy's brilliant. I love
Yeah,
it. And you get real feedback is really what it is. So my
yeah,
students, one of the benefits was, wherever I'm at, I know about the all arts open mics or the music open mics, and I'm the only comedian at those mics, and I prefer it. I don't ever tell any other comedians about it because I don't want them to ruin it. And
because
then
they
on
will.
occasion, I tell students. I'll tell a student, I'll be like, "Hey, you should go check out this mic on this night, you know, see how it goes, but don't tell anyone else." So I have those in my pocket, but
I love that. Now, see, the reason why I said if you ask if you taught like a producer's course is because you produced that I think it's that called like Comics Cure or Comic Cure or something like that
yeah,
for a while, and you produced all these shows and they were fantastic. And so having somebody who knows how to produce a show is a very difficult thing to find anywhere, right? Because you've got people who go, I run a show, and you see how they run a show and you go, yikes, right? But then there are real people who take time and know how to like produce show. This is how you reach out. This is how you deal with the venue. This is how you like all these things that are little pieces that if you don't do them correctly can ruin an entire show. But you know how to do that. That's why I said, do you run a show like that? Because if you ran like a class, like I'll teach you how to produce shows. These are the steps that I do. These are the things you need to do. Dude, I would be into that. I would be like, yeah, sign me
I
up. Let's
know
go.
it's so. I'm asked quite often. So Comic Cure is my company. It's my brother's company.
Okay.
Um, he does everything besides stand up. He produces, writes, teaches. Um, and it's really his company, and I'm the creative director. And it's just a funnel for me being able to afford to live. He's really offered me that opportunity. He's the
Good
back
guy.
end, the admin. He's seen me throughout my life. He's been on the road with me. He came to LA and saw my hustle, and really studied it. He was with nonprofits. So when we merged what we did together to create Comic Cure and our niche at the time originally, how we separated ourselves was we took the celebrity comedians or, who have a story and matched that story with a nonprofit that affiliated with it. Right. So whether it's breast cancer with Susan G. Komen or, a veterans organization with a comedian who served in the military or currently, and we found that niche and it was great. Transitioning the healing power of laughter through storytelling and association is
Yep.
what everyone hopes to do. I'm not good at it, but I can facilitate other people because I know so many comedians. Um, the original thing was the class, talking about the class. So we still have a booking agency. We are consultants. That's really what I am, as a comedy consultant for stand up and for the business side. So when
That's cool.
we taught the class, it produced some successful producers that came back to bite us in the ass.
Oh,
It's kind of like teaching someone. It's like giving someone a superpower and then they use it for evil instead of good.
gotcha.
Um, so we remain as consultants. So people can hire us for their restaurant, comedy club, theater. I mean, we work with all of them nationwide. We're breaking through to this point where we're no longer, I was doing, when I moved down here to Florida, I would consult for any venue, 30 seats, 50 seats, 100 seats. And now we're at the point where we can't.
Right.
It doesn't make sense. So we're looking now from 200 to 1,000 seat venues on average that we're consulting with, and hopefully breaking into that bigger market. That's really you know where I'm going to make
So
more money as a comedian.
when you said it bit you in the butt, like when it bit you in the butt, are you saying that it was like they started taking gigs from you, or they started using your name to do stuff? Like, how did it kind of just
Um,
you don't have to be
in
like super.
Yeah, no, people would basically, yeah, they would then enter your same market,
Just kind of
uh,
undercut you and stuff.
undercut you, devalue. They do the things that I wouldn't do.
Right.
Um, like a venue recently that I worked with for a long time that was a small venue, and I was just, you know, helping them out, friend of a friend, not really making any money, sometimes losing money off of just being the booker and consultant.
Right.
Um, and after a while, they were like, people are always reaching out to them, the venue themselves, and undercutting us. So they literally went with someone who just follows what we do, tries to copy it, and goes into literally contacts venues that we work with and undercuts us. Um,
Jeez.
so the venue said, everyone's charging us less than what you charge, less than half. And I was like, yeah, because there's nothing involved. Do they have insurance? Do they have liability? Do they have the 25 years of experience and Rolodex of what we're offering you and the verbiage? And I was like, we have a contract where you can't use other people. And they go, I can't do any other comedy shows in my venue. I go, yeah. And they go, okay, well then I'm just not gonna use you guys. I was like, okay, but realize that in my contract, you can't use any of the people that I booked for you for 2 years. That's our non-compete.
Smart.
And they didn't realize because that's not what they were thinking about. So now they're not going to be able to do stand up at all because everyone that I have a relationship with is how they know anyone in comedy.
Right.
And they were end running with the comedians. Comedians reach out to them, say, "Hey, thanks so much." Comedians don't realize when you reach out to that and you go, "Hey, how's it going? Thanks so much for having me. That was great. I'm happy to come back anytime." You tell that to the owner instead of the booker, you're end running like any business would go. You're going from your position, skipping the person and going up. So guess what? That comedian isn't going to get any more work from me.
Right.
They don't realize what they're doing. They're doing subconsciously, and the venue is now no longer doing comedy.
Yikes.
That's because you tried to screw us out of it, you know. So we do now have measures put in because we are a bit legitimate business,
Right.
you know, to keep us from that. But you know, it's how do you put a price tag on teaching someone how to be successful in that respect? I guess Tony, what's his name, the motivational speaker, does a good
No,
job.
Tony Robbins.
Yeah, $6,000 a day. You know, I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Um, but you know what I tell people is my friends and younger comics, if you have any questions, please let me know. And if you want to run a room and have us do it for you, fantastic. You know, we'll give you, 25%. You know who does a really good job at all that is Don't Tell.
Yeah.
They let, but it's a pretty rigorous, not rigorous, but they do a good job of, hey, you need to be able to actually do what you say is you need to run the room this way. We do the similar thing, but they're pretty good at it. They're streamlined it well.
I know they're everywhere now. They went from
Yeah,
like, a couple of things to like all over the place. I think do you remember Andy Benedetti? Do you know Andy Benedetti?
I don't.
Oh, I think he runs one like in Santa Clarita or something. And so there's they're all over
They're
the
all
place.
over. Yeah.
I was
I've
like,
talked to them a
wow.
bunch. They're great people. They do a great job. And the thing I say is, stuff like people like that, they're not competition.
No.
We're not in competition together, but there are people that feel like it's a competition. They act like it's a competition. They try to make you feel less of a person and try to belittle you. And I'm like, I don't have time for that. So when it comes to business people like that, I'm like, those people are great. Everyone else, screw you. I'm not even going to answer the phone.
Yeah. I love that. So if you were like, because you used to coach young comedians coming up and stuff, and now you don't necessarily do that as much anymore. But what is like the biggest piece of advice that you would give new comedians starting out? What is the thing that you say, hey, this is what you need to master. This is the thing that you need to focus on to level up.
Focus
Okay.
is the big thing. Well, first of all, I always open everything with, like I said earlier, nothing anyone says or does is gonna, you know, like if you go up to say someone in a contest and you go, "Hey, do you think I should use the word pussy?" And you go, "I can't give you advice." They go, "Well, what would you do?" Well, I would not. I would do it, or I wouldn't do it. Right? I'm telling you what I would or wouldn't do. I'm not telling you what you should do. No one can tell you what you should do. Right? It matters what you do. So really, if you don't, you will experience everything as long as you write every day and get on stage every day.
Yep. Okay.
That you will become successful. I very early on, I got to interview Ralphie May. I was going to do it was for this, I was writing and doing interviews for some online TV show that was like before YouTube. And I was sent to interview Ralphie May, and they told me before I interviewed him, you've got a 5-minute interview. He kept me in the green room for 3.5 hours,
Just talking.
just talking. And it was
Wow.
on record the entire time, recording for TV the entire time. And it was one of the best classes in comedy ever. And something he said was, do 1,800 sets, and every question you have will be answered. Because I was like, how do I know when I'm a comedian? Like
1,800
I'm
sets.
doing open mics a lot. How do I know when I can say I'm a comedian? He goes, do 1,800 sets. Then you'll be able to ask yourself that question a little bit more. I was like, okay.
Wow,
Um,
that's so smart. I never even thought of that. Paul Moonji just told me to, hey, I know that you think that you're past this, but you need to go work out some more, like go to the gym. So you should be hitting an open mic every night that you can.
oh yeah.
And I was like,
Something cool that I remember from LA was on Monday night at the crappiest open mics, Bill Burr is working on new material. And it was pretty awful. It was pretty rude, racy, anti-women, anti-everybody. And then by Wednesday, it was like genius material. Because Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, he was doing it 50 times each day at crappy open mics.
right.
Um, I did that for 17 years every day. Now I'm, you know, like I did work like last 20 days straight doing shows, but I really prefer just doing like 1 or 2 big shows a week, to tell you the truth. Just one Friday, I'm home by 9, one Saturday, home by 8:30.
Hey, that's you know what? That's the dream. I think there's a lot of comedians who wish they could just do, a couple of shows here and there, make enough to pay for the month, and then go on the next month, do the same thing over and over again, and make enough to just keep going, moving
I mean, I
forward.
used to be in it for that stage time,
Yeah,
where I needed it every single day. And to tell you the truth, I do feel stifled when I'm not performing enough.
right,
But never in my life would I think about taking a day off of stand up, even if I was very sick. I would
right.
still make sure there was that 10-minute period where I wasn't crapping myself that I could talk on stage. And now I'm like, if it's not going to be a wonderful time where I get to see wonderful people and hang out and really be appreciated, I'm like, I could just stay home and appreciate myself. But it wasn't always that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is the that's what gets people, I think, is that first couple of years of just grinding, of just being out at mics and not feeling appreciated, not feeling like you're moving forward. You just feel like you're kind of floating in this giant lake and the wind is just battering you around in every single way. The waves are splashing on you and you're just going, I hope I don't sink. Like, I hope I can just survive this. And then eventually you find a river or you find your little way to go and you start moving down the stream. And then you go, okay, there's something here. But a lot of people will quit in that 1 to 3 year range where they go, I'm not getting anything. I'm not getting anything out of this. I'm just going on stage in front of a bunch of people who don't pay attention to me, don't respond, talk, and then go home and feel stupid about myself.
My first 5 years was miserable. It was bombing every day, and doing Holocaust jokes to Jewish crowds because that was my community.
Oh my
And
God.
that's, I thought edgy, so stupid. Um, but I also, what were you just saying? Lost my train of thought.
Or like what the first couple years are hard, and then you find a place to go or find a direction that you kind of move in.
Yeah, no, there was something else that you said that I found very interesting. Um, Gosh, what was it? Sorry, I just got a text from. We have a company called Super Scoopers.
Is that like a dog poop cleanup thing?
Yeah, it's
Nice,
wonderful.
nice. You
uh,
you run it, or they work for
no,
you?
I would have thought of. It's something I would have thought about.
It's
We have
smart.
three. I have 3 dogs, and
Okay.
so they come every week, and they send you a field tech will be there in 5 minutes, and I got to make sure the hounds aren't out in the yard. So I texted my wife to make sure. They send you a little message that says "Poop's been scooped" once they leave.
That's genius.
Yeah, the guy's killing it. He hated his business, the life of working where he was, and started this company,
Genius.
and he's killing it. He's crushing it. And we pay him less than $100 a month, but I'm sure he's got
Yeah.
so many clients.
Yeah, and how long does it take him to do it? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever.
10 minutes,
Yeah, and then you on to the next one. And if you could get a bunch of people in the same area, you just boom, boom, boom,
40
boom,
a
boom.
day, 50 a
Yeah,
day. Yeah, and
yeah.
he's got 3 people that works for him now.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's
Um,
what.
it reminds me of something that we were talking about earlier, but I got sidetracked again. Sorry.
It's all right. Well, so I was saying, the first like couple years, you're kind of like just struggling to survive. That's where most people quit comedy. You probably saw that a lot too. Is like you would see people come to open mics for a while, and then they would just
Oh,
disappear.
every day of my 23 years, people I know quit comedy. Most of the people that I started with don't do comedy. I'm
Same.
still very close with them. They're writers or whatever, or maybe do it here and there. And I felt let down for sure because I was like, this is my crew. I'm gonna make it and bring them with me.
Yes.
And then I moved to LA and everyone stopped doing stand up. I'm like, oh God, what am I doing? So I lost that thing, and you feel like so you want to quit. But I've been very fortunate. First, with my family, my siblings and stuff, before I met my wife and my stepdaughter, my family, my brothers would be like, my older brother literally said to me, "You don't stop, don't ever quit, and whatever we need to do as a family to make sure that you get by." And during the pandemic, it was tough for me. All of my siblings were giving me money and my folks just so
Wow.
I could make it. I was like, why? Like, I'm just so I could stay in LA for another month. And I was like, this is crazy. What am I doing? I'm watching life through a screen. And I was like, I'm out of here because you couldn't work.
Yeah.
You know, it's very tough to work as a comedian if you're not an actor or something in LA. It's you have to leave. I mean, it is one thing because you can get more work by saying you live in Los Angeles, really,
Right.
almost. And the networking alone. I was able to help a lot of people, meet agents and representatives. And they think that I know what I'm doing. I don't know anything about that. I would love for someone to come and be like, hey, you've been doing comedy enough. You've got enough time. We'd be happy to put you on the road and start building up a fan base for you. I would love someone to do that. I'm not a pretty boy who necessarily has, something a story, I think, but maybe someday it'll happen. But until then, I still have to be able to afford everything here. And my family now, my wife has a job and does her thing and is able to support my dreams and, we work it out. So she comes to almost every single show.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
awesome. My wife does
It's
not come to shows anymore.
yeah, it's been 3 years of, I do lots of shows. So for anyone to do that is gotta be it's the greatest sacrifice.
100%.
Yeah. But I do love it so much. And when we leave a show, we're talking about, you know, the details of every little thing. And, I've been doing some of my jokes for 20 years. They just change. They morph into being applicable now. And the thing is, it is still applicable. It's the way you utilize what you know and what you do and who you are. Um, Craig, what's the guy from The Office? Plays the piano.
Oh, I need Craig Robinson,
Craig
who I love
Robinson's so funny, such a great show.
always.
People are just rocking out in that show. Um, he goes, he said to me, I beatbox, and he goes, "You're great at beatboxing." He's like, "You know how to do it really well, right? Whatever you do really well, go all in. Don't." I was like, "Yeah." I was like driving him home after a show or something, and I couldn't afford to get my window fixed in the side he was at. He was like, "Why is your window doesn't go down?" I was like, "It could go down, it just won't go back up." So he was like, "How much does it cost?" I was like, "I think it's like $1,000 to fix it because they got to take away everything, put a new motor in." And he was like, "Do it, get it done." I was like, "I don't have $1,000." I was like, "I barely have $1,000." He's like, "Put it out there, do what you do, and that will come back to you." And I was like, "Okay, I get it." And it was, who knows if it made sense or what he was really saying, but he was like, "Do whatever you do the best, do it."
I love
If
that.
and it's not the best out of anyone, it's the thing that you do the best for yourself, right? And when I was younger, I had another comedian told me, he was like, everything that we do in our life led us to here. So think about everything. Those are all skills. That's not just wasted time. Even if you sat in front of the TV and ate potato chips, guess what? You're probably a potato chip connoisseur,
I
right? How can you utilize that? I don't know, but get into it.
like it.
Same thing with stand up
I love it.
and producing. They're the same things. The more you do it, the more you learn
Yeah,
how to do it better. And you see
that's the
other people
thing.
do a crappy job.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. By you telling me to do that, it helped me develop a skill that a lot of other comedians would come up and say, "How are you doing that? Why are you doing it?" I'm like, I was told to do this. It's going to give me stage time. It'll make me connections. It'll help me get better at comedy faster. And
Yeah.
I just took Richie's advice and just did it. And it worked out.
MC a show. You'll meet every person on the show.
Yeah. And emceeing, I always go back to emceeing. I love emceeing. I know like a lot of comedians go, I don't want to be MC. And they like try to get out of it as quick as possible. But I find it adds something to the show. You're helping build the show
Oh
into a
yeah.
core. And it's
A
like,
good MC is the most important part. People, clubs here don't even look at the performers they're hiring to MC,
oof,
and the shows are awful.
yeah.
And I'm like, oh. When I moved to LA and I started working at Flappers, one of the first things I did was I hired all headliners that I knew as MCs for all of the shows.
Wow.
We created a budget for MCs, 25 bucks or 50 bucks. And because I only knew headliners when I moved to LA because it was whoever I opened for over the years, and all of them became my MCs. So JC Carrias, Flip Schultz,
Yep.
Jeff Keith, Amir K, what's her face, Melissa Villasenor, Jody Miller. Those were the MCs, and the shows were killer.
Yeah.
When you have headliners MCing, Brad Garrett does it. He MCs all the time.
It's an amazing skill, and too many comedians want to jump over it too fast. They want to go, no, I want to be a feature. I want to be on the road. I don't want to. I don't want to. It's like you're gonna miss out. You're gonna miss out on one of the greatest things that makes you a better comedian because you have to learn to be right in it right away, and you have to be able to connect with the audience right away. And you're gonna forget that skill. I worked with a headliner who said to me, "I haven't done a 15 or 20-minute set in years. All my stuff is 60, 45, 50, 60, 70, 90 minutes." And I was like, that's scary, man. Like, I would be terrified if I hadn't been doing any 10, 15-minute, 20-minute sets and I
Yeah.
was a headliner. How are you building new stuff? How are you doing anything at that point?
That's the thing with the focus. What I tell younger comics is just to focus on 3 minutes at a time. That's my classes are based on 3-minute sets.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if you can't get a laugh every 10 seconds in 3 minutes, there's no reason you should be doing 5 minutes. There's no reason you should be doing 20 minutes. They go, because I ask everyone, what are your goals with comedy? And most of them go, I want to do a half hour or an hour special. Where do I start? Well, you don't start with an hour.
Were you there when I did for my 35th birthday? I rented out the Yoo-Hoo room and did half an hour for my 35th birthday. Were you there for that?
I don't remember.
Yeah. And I think who was I forgot who oh no, it was dang it, I forgot now. But like there was a bunch of people who were like, what are you doing? And I'm like, because I just started like right before that. And they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm gonna do a half hour for my birthday. It's like something I've always wanted to do. I'm turning
It's great
35, might as
though.
well do it. And
Yeah.
everyone was like, you're insane. And I'll be honest with you, 25 minutes of that, no good at all. But about 5 to 7 minutes of that, pretty good. Not bad.
Yeah. Dude, when I started featuring, I only had maybe 7 minutes, but there was a lot of like smaller clubs over here in Florida, and so it was like 5 years later I started featuring, and my first 5 years were awful, and because I was in an improv background and I could talk, so I could do 25 minutes of improv of just doing crowd work, and I would do my 3 minutes up front and then my 4 minutes at the close. It was not impressive by any means, but someone thought it was good enough to give me a lot of work
There you
and pay
go.
me $50.
That's all it takes. So with all that in mind, with everything we talked about, what if you had to go back and start comedy over, besides focus, what would be the thing that you tell yourself to do to kind of accelerate your comedy career, accelerate where you would be?
It's funny because I don't give this advice. I don't give advice. I don't tell this to a lot of people. There's a handful of people who go, "Hey, I'm moving to LA. Is there anything that you would say to me to make it go better?" And I say, do everything you can to get a job as a door guy at the Comedy Store.
I've been trying to do that
And
actually.
don't ask me who you can get on. Don't be like, hey, I'm going to LA. Can you hook me up with people so I can perform on shows? Don't waste your time at the open mics or trying to get on shows. Number one thing, go to the Comedy Store every day. Try to get a job as a door guy and just sit and watch everything going on. The more you're at the Comedy Store, the more likely it is you're about to get on TV or become a writer or something like that, even if you don't have the background in any respect, just because you're there.
Yep.
And then second is go to the shows and watch the comedians that you love.
I like that.
That should surpass you doing those open mics. I say that, and still, you go to the open mics, you become friends with everybody.
Yeah.
But then, if you do the other stuff, you're gonna find those mics. There's people like Chris Duguay, right? What's his name? Christian Duguay, who's a comedian, and he's at all the open mics. And when you become friends with him, it turns out, hey, he was the executive director of Ridiculousness and hired a room full of comedians to be the writers on that show. So
Wow.
when you're doing those mics, you do meet those people. But at the Comedy Store, you're going to excel quicker. If you're in LA for the reasons you should be in LA is to better your career, just stay there. And people are like, what about live actor or the improv? Cool, cool, cool. The Comedy Store will make your career if you get in there because it is a click. And I'm not about clicks. That's why I
Yeah.
never went. It was dark and depressing when I was there, not something that I can handle. My heart can't handle that crap. If I went back to LA and I was really wanting to do that, I would go back and try to become a door guy.
That's awesome. I mean, it worked. Bruce Gray. That's how he broke through. That's what he did
Yeah.
recently.
I mean,
I love
everybody.
Bruce. Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's a bunch of them. But Bruce and I were well, he started a little bit before me, but we did shows together and stuff, and then he became a door guy, and now he's touring and whatever. It's like that's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I love that.
And that, the Comedy Store is now,
The place.
when you go to Austin, and that's kind of like the mothership is kind of like the same thing. That's exactly what they're doing. They're taking the people who've done comedy for 2 minutes, and you're opening for Joe Rogan in a theater of 30,000 people.
Yeah. That's crazy. Have you seen the lines of some of the open mics and stuff they do at the mothership? Or Kill Tony. It's like
Kill Tony
through an alley and like down a block and like I'm like not in a million years.
It's huge. It's great. It's great. And it's great. I know a bunch of comedians have been doing it for decades, and they get on Kill Tony, and all of a sudden they got a career. It's fantastic.
The Verzi triplets.
Yeah, there you go.
They're. I remember when that happened. I remember being around when that happened. I was like, whoa, this is crazy.
The Verzi triplets, one of a kind.
One of a kind. What? Three of a kind. They're the best. They're the best. And Richy, I appreciate you so much, man. I'm so glad that we were.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
It was the best. Where can people find you? Where can they find your shows that you produce? Where can they find how to reach out to you and get your experience?
Yeah, Richy Leis, RICHYLEIS. You just type that into anything and I'll come up.
Perfect.
.com, anything. And yeah, I mean, I got a couple of comedy special. I got one special that came out a couple months ago. I don't love it.
Where can people watch it?
Open Bar.
Okay, that's the dry bar reverse thing where it's like
yes.
like the blue version of dry bar type thing.
Exactly.
Right? Okay, yeah.
And I had a clean set, but whatever. And then I'll be coming out with something. Just follow me, and something special will be coming out.
Awesome. That's amazing.
Yeah, thanks, James.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Please like, subscribe, go check out Richy's stuff. He's amazing. Honestly, so I owe so much of my first years of comedy to him, like saying, go do this thing. And I was like, you got it. I'm gonna go do it. And then I did it, and then I wouldn't be.
And
I don't
now
think
years later, you're blaming me.
I would never blame you ever. I'm only thankful to you. One day when I'm famous, I'm just gonna send you. You're just gonna get like a random gift basket from me. Like, thank you.
I look forward to it. I'm non-dairy, by the way.
Non-dairy, you got it. I remember that. And I'm like, Richy's non-dairy. We cannot send him any dairy products. Send him something nice. We'll send him an almond milk trio or something. I don't know. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much, Richy. Thank you, everybody. Please like, subscribe, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a good one. Bye.